Dear friends, Manch UK heartily welcomes you to our celebration of the global South Asian classical dance community. As we transition from online to in-person events, we would like to thank Tony Matharu for providing us with this beautiful venue and to an anonymous donor for his generous support.
Manch UK Presents Footprints, a celebration of the global South Asian classical dance community during the pandemic. Manch UK was launched as a virtual stage promoting cross-arts events, collaborations, and experiences from the South Asian subcontinent. This celebration is about acknowledging and encouraging some of the meaningful work carried out within the dance community. And this was during the pandemic, whether it was artistic or altruistic.
Manch itself was born of the lockdown on the 8th of April 2020. It was started in an effort to uplift the dance community while we faced sudden barriers. We did this by bringing together dance artists virtually to share their stories. Virtual stage spaces have been utilized successfully to motivate artists to stay resilient in the face of COVID. We are proud to have been part of this movement for South Asian classical dance in the UK. This pandemic has been an emotionally, physically, and financially challenging experience for the artistic communities across the world. It has impacted the creative inspiration and work opportunities of performers, teachers, students of dance, as well as everybody working behind the scenes.
Artists would not be able to create so many technically intricate works without the help and support of technicians. Though many artists have had to become technicians of some sort during the curfews at home, we must thank the real technicians for their constant guidance and aid. We would also like to thank composers, musicians, stage managers, directors, promoters, costume designers and makers, and light designers as well, for their diligent work behind dance works. These friends of dance would have had less work and have been severely impacted, yet they have continued to support the sector.
Today, we are celebrating the creativity and humanity demonstrated by the dance community in the last year and a half. Artists have collaborated, innovated, and shared in ways that have kept the dance world so exciting amidst all the chaos. This commemoration is not only for the publicly noted achievements of the dance community, it is also for the successes that occurred silently, yet have left a long-lasting footprint. While the world came together through digital channels, there were so many more that did not have the access to the technology, but continued to do great and meaningful work. This event is also a modest effort to acknowledge so many of these very, very important initiatives.
Our original intention was to host an award show, but because of COVID, we felt it was not fair to select winners, as we have no idea about the individual circumstances or challenges faced by each artist. Thus, we decided to celebrate each and every nominee and honor the resilience of the fraternity. Between August and October 2021, Manch UK reached out to 25 renowned artists to nominate dancers and initiatives that have stood out for them during the pandemic.
We would like to acknowledge that the names that we have compiled are only those that we have access to as an organization run by a UK-based team. We have some international links as well. This celebration is not intended to represent the entire global South Asian classical dance world or the dance community. But next year, we hope to host an awards ceremony through an open nomination process to recognize artistic excellence in the dance community globally. This year, we are delighted to present this festival celebrating the care that we have seen within the community. For example, the care shown by artists towards their mediums and their fields whilst trying to navigate the new waters of the web.
To present the honors and share various contributions and achievements, we are elated to welcome distinguished guest speakers from across the globe. Each honor will be presented in alphabetical order and have been categorized as following: The first category is learning and teaching dance.
Curators of dance,
Dance through multimedia,
filming dance, giving to dance,
talking about dance,
activism dance.
सर्वमङ्गल माङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोऽस्तु ते।
Every dancer's journey begins in dance class, learning the basics of their art form. Without brilliant and dedicated teachers, there would be no great artists. We thank all the teachers who have strived to continue this process throughout the last 21 months, using whatever tools at their disposal, acquiring new technical skills, and adapting quickly and generously to new ways of teaching. This meant that students could not only continue their training uninterrupted, but even develop other, sometimes neglected aspects of their dance education, such as dance theory and critical thinking. Teaching kept much of the dance community moving forward, and the work of the teaching fraternity cannot be overstated. Through our research, we have discovered that many distinguished dancers like Alarmel Valli and Malavika Sarukai shared their knowledge through generous talks. Similarly, the following artists and foundations have contributed towards the teaching or learning of dance. In alphabetical order, we would like to thank Dr. Ananda Shankar Jayant for her Natya Ramba YouTube channel, which shared enlightening content. Example, Tamrapatra sessions and Kutti Kahani videos in collaboration with Anita Ratnam. Archive.org for releasing a plethora of new and ancient dance books online. Vijayani Satpathy for her virtual videos detailing her Odissi technique. Ed Jealous for hosting online workshops by artists across the globe. Fasiur Rahman for mentoring and nurturing dancers in India. Gopalan Nair Venu for his Navarasa Sadhana course, which was seamlessly transferred online during the pandemic. GVRNK Foundation for its Reviving Marga Talas through Allaripu e-learning experience. Kala Anvesham for lecture demonstrations on the Margi techniques of the Natya Shastra. Madhu Natraj for her online Natya Institute course during the COVID pandemic. Dr. Padma Subramaniam for her online master's course and her virtual Karanas classes with Dr. Gayatri Kannan. Rukmini Vijay Kumar for her innovative 200-hour online choreography course. Dr. Sandhya Purecha for online dance education through Bharata College of Fine Arts and Culture, Mumbai, and providing continuous support to young dancers and students throughout the pandemic, and for the generous sharing of her knowledge about dance theory on various digital platforms. Sangeet Natak Academy and NCPA at Home for sharing archived video footages of classical dance that inspired many. Sharmila Bishwas for sustaining her dance education work through the pandemic. Shobana Narayanan for her generous imparting of knowledge, energizing Kathak dancers. Dr. Swarnamalya Ganesh for Talam Talkies, the sharing of Sadir clips and other free lectures provided over Facebook. Shale School in Bangalore for their unique business model of teaching.
Self-isolation, enforced incarceration. This was so much a part of what the pandemic was for everyone. But for me, it opened up a very large window because it was a window of communication which I had not explored or accessed well before, where I had accepted, I said, okay, since I'm not performing, I'll accept these talks, these interviews. And all of a sudden, it was a new world. It was magical because there I was. I couldn't see the audience. First time I was doing this talk, I had to look at my own face, and it was a bit disorienting, unnerving even. But as I got used to it, I found it extremely enriching, heartwarming, because I was interacting with a lot of young people, young dancers, which I didn't have a chance to do unless it was with my students earlier. Because in a performance, there is a lot of intense interaction, but it's not as articulated as it was. So here I could share my thoughts, my ideas, and other questions would crop up. Someone asked me about dealing with illness, and that for me gave me the chance to talk about my own experience with cancer and how it is a positive experience. You come out of it stronger and better. And I think she took something away from it. So it was very touching and moving also to be able to share my experiences, what I have learned, because the whole process is one of learning, of enrichment. And that's how we grow as dancers. And that's how this pandemic opened up a new world, a new means of sharing and of interacting, of reaching out and holding someone's hand. That for me was very important.
The power of a passion as a core strength is a unique life lesson I learned during my tryst with breast cancer, of looking at life's obstacles as challenges and milestones. It is this lesson that I wanted to share that manifested in the many projects that we have been doing over the last 21 months. It all began on 22nd March 2020, the first day of India's lockdown, when we invited dancers to choreograph and share a 1-minute performance that said Namaskaram or gratitude. Soon, with the Natyashala and the With Me series of learning modules from senior artists, we also had Gile, a fun video that kept the young upbeat. By May 2020, inspiration came through 4 incredible talks, live stories under the Punarnava series. Later in 2020, we created Kutti Kahani, a 55-episode short video series of Indic knowledge and arts by and for children in the age group of 6 to 13, which was a runaway success. We continue with our Tamrapatra series, a year-long learning module of rare Annamacharya Kritis. All these digital activities kept us cheerful and focused and helped us cut the clutter and clamor that the pandemic brought with it, saving us from that emotional vortex.
My father is the most resilient person amongst us. As a group, as performing artists, when the first lockdown came, all sources of our income, including touring, workshops, teaching assignments, everything came to a standstill. So it was my father who decided that he was going to take his workshops online, and we were all doubtful about the success of such a venture, but he was very confident, and in a week's time he got all the equipment installed and he just set off. And the workshops, after the very first one, he understood how to restructure the workshop to suit the digital platform, and the workshops just kept running successfully, one after the other. And what was most wonderful about the workshop is that a lot of people from around the world who would normally not have the opportunity to travel all the way to Irinjalakuda to do a physical workshop, like homemakers, people with little children, artists with busy schedules in normal circumstances, they could all have access to the teaching. And it kept us creatively engaged and financially afloat, not just the family, but all the artists who support us as well. So he adapted very beautifully, and I think over the course of the last 2 years, more than, I think, 450 students completed various phases of the workshop. So yes, he was the one who kept us going.
Learning should never stop. So I began appearing on various digital platforms to share knowledge and deliver lectures on subjects relating to dance, theory and practice, Shastra and Sampradaya, and also the philosophy through my own life journey. But that was not enough. The young students should be busy either in a Gita or in a Shastra or in a Vinoda or any activity. That is what I tried. I started a series of online activities and competitions, etc., to constantly stir their creative minds to make it a holistic learning experience. The online event to announce the result was also an educative and also an informative one. Additionally, I continued 3 of my annual flagship dance festivals under my campaign, Soch, Save Our Cultural Heritage Through Dance. Shastra is also a very important part when person is sitting idle. So I established the 2 research centers for the dance, the first in collaboration with Sri Sri University, Cuttack, and the second under my own institution affiliation to the Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtegna.
The pandemic has been, I think, a time of myth breaking, at least for me. I mean, the myth of permanency, the myth of security, all of that. But in terms of what happened to me, the first 5-7 months of the lockdown, what started innocently as a way to reach out to the larger artistic community to share knowledge, really turned out to be a platform for me to float dialogues on the dearly held myths around performance, around particularly dance history, Sadir history in particular, and sort of break those down in very non-argumentative but assertive ways to share evidence, because this was online. All of this was made possible because we had generated an interest amidst the community of artists who were not just artists, but also enthusiasts and culture lovers. It kept me alive. That's what it did to me. Now, looking back, I'd say that perhaps the fuel of those first 8 months kept me going in the more desperate times that followed. So, yes, I owe it to everyone who showed up for those weekend classes and shared that time with me.
ఇటువలే మేడకేగి సరసీరుహ లోచన పూల పాన్పుపై తలంపుపై తటుక్కున పవ్వళించి
The ongoing discourses on dance have enabled artists to be involved on many different levels and still engage with the form, even if they are not dancing physically. For many, speaking about dance or research-based informative talks and conversations have always been a part of their dance practice. The online medium has given us access to rare conferences, discussions, and talks to a global audience without any constraints. Audiences have benefited from flexibility in viewing hours and a platform to type in thoughts for discussion. For others, especially those who have been unable to participate in dance performances or practice physically due to the pandemic, a generous sharing of knowledge by scholarly artists have made many aspects of dance and dance theory accessible. We are so proud of the conversations that have bloomed in the dance sector during this time, which have helped dancers stay in touch with their art form as well as with each other. We would like to mention a few of them as follows. Dr. Anupama Kailash for her participation in Natya Ramba's Tamprapatra sessions, elaborating on her dance methodology and philosophy. Aranyani Bhargav and Mahalakshmi Prabhakar for their Recognizing Dance platform, which presented the philosophies of dancers and scholars, opening up dance dialogues. Dr. Avanti Meduri for her conversations online from India about the politics of dance. The From Indenture to Stage conference by the South African Indian Dance Alliance, SEDA, for bringing together teachers, performers, historians, and dance enthusiasts from across the global Indian diaspora. IPAC by Apsara Arts Singapore for their annual Performing Arts Convention, bringing together creatives from every corner of the industry. Jaya Chandran Palari for speaking about dance online, specifically the performative experience. Parul Shah and Sonali Skandan for their moderation of virtual dance talks by Jiva Performing Arts. Sangeeta Chatterjee for speaking as part of the Kalakriti series about her dance philosophies as a performer and a teacher. Dr. Sonal Mansingh for her invigorating series of lectures. For example, a lecture on Indian philosophy in Bharatiya Shastra Nritya.
Lack of performance spaces, opportunities, and the improbability of actually going out there and performing. I also feel that it kind of turned the minds of the younger dancers, especially, towards understanding the theory behind what they practice, to understand how what are the founding principles around which they have been practicing a certain art form or a certain idea. So how we wanted to bring in this Vagyakara literature and put it out there, not as a this is the right hand, this is the left hand, this is the module, this is the way you move kind of a module, but more as a quest to understand what are the dynamics between the text, the literature, the image that you're creating, the visual that you're creating, and the whole synergy that happens, between all these various components. Because when in a performance, we only see them coming together. But in a talk, in a lecture, we see each component separately and we see how each of them work in their individual space. And then when you put them together, what evolves?
Why Mahalakshmi and I decided to do this was because we felt there was a vacuum in the absence of live performances, but more importantly, we found that there was a lack of easily accessible information about the history of our dance forms, and therefore a lack of nuanced understanding about these histories. And this was leading to polarization and misinformation, and ultimately to what we felt was a fragmented and fractured sort of dance world. And we wanted to help or sort of contribute in our small way to build those bridges and to also build a sense of community in the dance world, where we are able to mutually learn from one another, where we are able to have multiple perspectives and multiple understandings of various dance forms and their histories, their politics, the societies in which they were thriving and surviving in the past, and how we can connect that to what is happening in the dance world in India today.
We cannot celebrate the dance community without acknowledging the curators of dance for organising the performances that we have been lucky to watch. Promoting artists, commissioning dance productions, organising festivals, it's a mammoth task at any time. But to do it when the physical world was shut, with limited resources and using innovative platforms, was nothing short of phenomenal. Dance curators have worked double time in order to keep the wheels turning, and have provided us audiences with the joy of the arts in these isolated times. It is our pleasure to congratulate the following: Alap Concepts for curating and presenting the work, dance stories and interviews of a huge range of artists during COVID. Dr. Anita Ratnam for her numerous commissions and collaborations with artists and organisers across the world. Akhila Krishnamurti for her Hope in the Time of Corona initiative. Datuk Ramli bin Ibrahim for curating the Gerak Angin Malaysian Dance Festival. Jonathan Hollander for his Battery Dance Festival, which brought together a wide gamut of artists. Kala Anvesham for bringing together art enthusiasts to explore different kinds of art forms on their virtual platform. Kirtana Ravi for curating out-of-the-box events such as Eval. N. Srikanth and Aswadi's Pibare Rama Rasan online Ramayana Month Dance Festival from Kerala. New York Kathak Festival, produced by the American Kathak community, for bringing together the Kathak community to share and connect. Sahi Sambamurti and Shrita Shanmugam for their ambitious and lauded virtual Drive East Festival by Navatman Dance. Latapada's Anveshana, Reflections in Solitude Festival, for bringing together 4 different Indian classical dance forms presented by 4 leading dancers, Aditi Mangadas, Vijayini Satpathy, Methil Devika, and Rama Vaidyanathan. Serendipity Arts Virtual Festival, for their curation and presentation of a diverse range of Indian arts. Shruti Mohan for her Tak Twam Asi performing arts platform, which showcased a stellar variety of dancers who created from home during the pandemic. And Teamwork Arts for their versatile collection of artistically rooted and socially conscious content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
And sitting as I did in my home, the mind was racing. How could I illuminate this very unglamorous, this very nebulous space that I found dancers in across generations? That was how Boxed was created. The hiring I did was very interesting. I found that Team Nartaki and the people we had were not equipped for the lockdown and what I wanted to do. I was hiring, and interestingly, I searched once again for dancers who were tech savvy. And we built a team of editors and line producers who were dancers part-time, but now full-time online producers. Boxed. Then came Talam Talkies with my fascination for South Indian cinema and its relationship to Bharatanatyam. Andal's Garden, my continuing preoccupation with the 7th century Tamil mystic poet. Baby Diaries that highlighted the various forms of the sacred feminine across cultures and geographies. And Shivratri for an all-night celebration with talks.
In hindsight, when I look at it, I think of all the initiatives that we've curated right from March 2020 almost until last year. Is that I think of it as a sort of a 3-part initiative. The first part was really, the focus was really to see how we could uplift the overall spirit of everybody who was sort of trapped in. So all our initiatives were centered on allowing people to feel a sense of joy in the drudgery of their lives. Part 2, phase 2 was really about the whole idea of academic learning and sharing. And phase 3 was really about, especially when people were dealing with trauma, exhaustion, mental health issues, our focus was really on all the initiatives were centered around the idea of well-being and creating a spirit of anchoring. I think overall the spirit, the initiatives have been about connecting artists and audiences, celebrating the power and the potential of and the beauty of the arts, and to really raise a toast, to the universal truth that in the face of crisis, all of us are, after all, vulnerable, and that art has the power to move and heal. For me personally, this has been a beautiful way in which I have been able to actually stay anchored to these very, very trying times. The commitment that we sort of embarked on has helped me kind of navigate my own personal, traumas. And I think it has reinforced the fact that the very premise with which we set out Alap, that if we do something with truth, honesty, beauty, and simplicity, it has the ability to reach out and connect, very much like the premise of the arts itself.
The pandemic was unprecedented and dramatic in its impact on the arts across the globe. For Sampradaya Dance Creations, it was imperative to stay in operation, to nurture our dancers and staff, to provide them emotional and financial support, continued use of our studios, to rehearse and to create. It was a time of introspection, to uncover the meaning and value of dance for each of us individually, and how to make it more authentic, meaningful, and impactful for our audiences and to society. We embraced the concept of sharing dance digitally through commissioned works, dance festivals, series, and conversations. Supporting emerging dancers through online mentored choreographic residencies was a priority for Sampradaya. A clear sense of a global community of dance artists emerged through the digital exchanges of dance conversations and panel discussions. There will be no turning the clock back as we prepare for a new era of hybrid offerings of live and streamed performances, politically engaged dancers, bold, new, social, relevant works.
दारुण विग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायक शेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्
As physical stages were replaced by virtual ones, artists have had to alter their work in a myriad of ways. The positioning of angles, choreographic intention, and refashioning ensemble work into solo or smaller group work all had to be rethought to fit the constraints of lockdowns. We stand in solidarity with every member of our community, no matter what their output has or has not been during the past 2 years. It's not been easy for dancers to battle coronavirus and simultaneously be costume designers, videographers, and choreographers while rehearsing alone, often in confined spaces and amidst uncertainty.
Persevering forward creatively, artists have made short films on dance-related work intended to be viewed on social media platforms. Both have been challenging for the creators. They've had to master new skills. We've seen work that were inquisitive about dance form from creators' perspective and sparked introspection about dance from the audience perspective.
The nuances of the following creators enable dance to flourish across media and different audiences. For example, Manish Chauhan's Ye Ballet, which brought dance to Netflix and a whole new market. We would like to extend our hearty congratulations to Ayana Dance for a lovely range of dance videos presented on their platform, Aditi Mangaldas for her many inspired films and videos available online, especially from within, in collaboration with Raw Mango and Teamwork Fine Arts, and creativity needs a spark.
Vichitran Swain's Rudraksha Foundation for their beautifully filmed Odissi dance videos. Vijayani Satpathy for her creative Let's Sit and Dance series on Instagram. Apurva Jayaram for performing virtually on a range of platforms for different organizers. Example, like Father, like Son for Upasana UK. Kapila Venu for her Kudiyattam videos presented on many platforms based across the world during the pandemic.
Nilanjana Jui for her extraordinary work from Bangladesh, sharing many videos of her and her dancers dancing on her YouTube channel. Punya Dance Company for their fantastic ensemble work, presented on YouTube as well as on other online platforms. Rama Vaidyanathan for her many virtual performances, workshops and talks in collaboration with a multitude of organizers and platforms. For example, the Na Margam, presented at Evam by Rasabodhi Arts Foundation.
Rukmini Vijaykumar for her prolific dance films and videos, which are consistently maintained a very high quality. Example, Namami Yoga Vidya. Saini Chakrabarti for Tandav, which went viral across the internet and received great appreciation. Singapore Indian Fine Arts Society for a continuous stream of originally filmed dances and productions. Example, Reflections of a Migrant Worker, a CFAS alumni, as well as their collaborations with international artists.
Sri Devi Nrityalaya for their imaginatively choreographed and filmed ensemble work created by Guru Sheila Unnikrishnan, as well as solo work of her students such as Harini Jivita. Subhajit Khush Das for his mesmeric Yogani Yoga dance video for World Yoga Day. Sumedha Bhattacharya for her unswerving support of dance films, especially through the duet with a camera initiative. Vikram Iyengar's Water Bodies, based on Shavavahini Ganga, by Parul Khakkar that explores the theme of water through movement. It pays respect to victims of the second wave of COVID in India, some of whose bodies were discovered in the Ganges.
Yamini Reddy for a visionary videos hashtag Dance with Yamini, exploring the depths of Kuchipudi both historically and artistically.
During the beginning of lockdown, Aditi Mangaldas immediately sprung into action, answering the plights of many artists, of course her own company members who were supported throughout this tough pandemic as everyone was going through a financial crisis. What I most admire about her is she created commissions for people, for different artists. She fundraised. She did no end of workshopping and workshops and free online classes and material for people to keep them engaged and connected. Aditi had put herself out there and exposed her own being, and in order to help us as an arts community feel safe and be safe and have a sense of hope. I think also what is really important to acknowledge is through her works there was multiple different smaller works emerging through her workshopping, through her interaction with artists, and I think what the most important thing is it was global. It sort of panned across the world. So her reach was not just specific to India and the genre of Kathak, but it kind of transcended all forms of dance, and it became about how can movement allow us to breathe. And I think her practicality as well as her artistic integrity really shone through in the time of need.
What I particularly admire about Bijayaniji's sense of direction in all of it is the clarity with which she wrote the lessons. There was no moment that was just a throwaway. Okay, just do that for the sake of doing it. No, there was complete intention and understanding throughout it all. And this sort of is overwhelming because you're seeing all of it online, and which means you've got time to go away and process it in your own time, which seems quite voluminous when there isn't much else to do. But also immensely inspiring to watch someone across the screen who is just completely focused and dedicated on her practice. And the reason we know this is because Bijayaniji has been quite relentless in sharing her own explorations, both what she has learned, her own explorations, as well as new thoughts and questions. So this interaction was not just inspiring for me as a mentee on the other side of the world, but also it opened up conversations between us as just as fellow human beings about movement, about aesthetics. And this was deeply inspiring.
During the pandemic, without a hectic concert and travel schedule, I had a lot of time to introspect within into my dance and dialogue with those boundaries that I, as a classical dancer, have been dealing with all my life. Do I step across them? Do I bring them closer to me? Do I push them further away from me? Do I negotiate them? There were these questions that I dealt with. And moving boundaries is this solo work that actually emerged from this introspection into my dance, where I explored the relationship that I have with the boundaries that I face with as a dancer. It was a solo work that was commissioned by Sampradaya Dance Creations and Latapada in this festival called Anveshna. My second work that I would like to speak about is Sannidhanam, a group work that I did with my students, which actually explored geometry in space and the layers of significances
that we have in Indian philosophy with the triangle, the circle, and the square. It was an extremely camera-centric work.
I think they've primarily been in three areas. One is in the area of education and within the area of Bharatanatyam primarily. The second is what I've been able to do for the community, like people at large, as well as other artists, of course, using my dance and my art. And the third area is within my own creative, explorations, what's been possible. So it was obviously there was no stage performances, so I tried to adapt to video. Many people began commissioning video after that. So I made a lot of films, about 8 or 9 films up with proper production, scripting, and performance. And all the other films that I made were more just proper Margam Kritis and pieces that I just recorded in one take, actually on either on my terrace or on our farm with the help of my dear friend Vivian. So creatively, I really had to adapt, and it's been a learning process for me. And to be honest, I don't think I would have explored some of these avenues at all if not for the pandemic.
Freedom of expression, inclusivity, fighting racism and discrimination, acceptance and tolerance, advocacy in so many such forms became an important aspect of dance practice in the past year. The activism, both silent and vocal, of artists in 2020 and 2021 has sparked waves of conversation, throwing light on glaring imbalances in the existing systems. Artistic, political, economic, and social issues that have always been at the forefront surfaced during the pandemic and were sensibly and sensitively approached by many of the artists that we are happy to honor today. And their voices have helped make a real difference. Through empathy, these artists stepped up and spoke without fear of the permanence of the digital space. They commented on threads that were with candidity and with honest viewpoints, and shared dance, stepping out of their comfort zones to question and then to contribute to various issues. It takes great courage to put oneself in the public sphere like that, and to submit oneself to an outlash of strong opinions, knowing the positive and negative facets of social media. Whilst many lobbied for artists behind the scenes, some have always been activists at the forefront, dedicating years of their life towards the betterment of the dance sector and wider society with grace and integrity. Our next category honors the people for striving through the challenges of online activism, not only to do what they believe is the right thing to do, but also to listen and to learn and to become more aware of the issues of today and to help in the best ways that they can. We would like to name and recognize the following people for their activist spirit. Ananya Chatterjee for embracing politics as an important part of her lifelong work. Arshya Sethi, Parmita Saha, and Somabha Bandyopadhyay for setting up the Unmute website and speaking fearlessly about sexual harassment in the arts. Astad Devu for his last film, which was socially important as well as being highly artistic in presenting the plight of migrant workers. Jonathan Hollander for being an ally for Indian classical dance of dancers in North America. Mandeep Rekhi for the secular project in which he creatively experiments with the concept of secularism. Nandi Ketak for moderating conversations about activism through community and for always questioning important social issues within dance online. Navtej Singh Johar for his LGBTQ activism and his association with the farmers' movement during COVID. Sanjeevni Datta for her work via Pulse in setting out a manifesto for dancers following the Me Too movement. And Sanjoy Roy for his focused work aimed at getting government support for artists. Shubha Mughal for her lobbying on behalf of artists without access to the digital world and artists who do not live in urban centers.
As I speak to you, I am COVID positive, and it is truly remarkable that technology is allowing us to speak to each other across continents and share our thoughts, ideas, hopes, and our art. It was in a situation like this during the lockdown last year that some of the areas which one had not thought about earlier came to the forefront because of the new terrain of technologies that we employed. Areas like copyright, plagiarism, and regrettably and repeatedly, sexual harassment in the arts. That is when Cree Foundation, as part of a wider initiative in the arts and the law, created Unmute.help with the collaboration of other artists, Arts Forwards Paramita Saha and Shruti Performing Troops, lawyer and dancer Somabha Bandyopadhyay. Unmute.help is a one-point resource center for legal literacy on the issues of arts and the law. It is free, easily accessible, progressive, proactive, and empowering. We are unmuted, compelled so by the conditions that came forth during the lockdown. We intend to stay this way and hope that you will join us too.
Lost in the forest. The deer startled. 2 moons? Which is what? What is real and what is an illusion? Is the illusion real? A real illusion? Ah, says the deer, I am lost. Lost in the forest. And the pilgrim on the boat? Lost? Am I lost? The wanderer asks. Lost in time, or time lost in me? Lost in space, or space lost in me?
We would like to applaud the kindness that artists have shown towards one another, especially towards underprivileged people who were disproportionately affected by COVID-19. By organizing fundraising campaigns, dancing, teaching, creating, filming to raise funds. It is remarkable to see the backing that artists have given to each other when exploring a new iteration of the performative space online, and a community spirit that has persisted beyond so much grief. Humanity's greatest tool has been this community spirit. We have been so inspired by the work that we are celebrating today that it is our honor to introduce the next set of honors in the category Giving to Dance. We would like to express gratitude towards the following people for giving back to their community. Aditya Prakash and Maithili Prakash for COVID fundraising through their respective mediums. Manjari Chaturvedi for raising money for and helping artists in the towns of Uttar Pradesh. Rajika Puri for going out of her way to commission work and support artists in need. Sampapana Arts for raising funds for underprivileged folk artists during COVID. Dr. Sohini Chakraborty for her work with survivors of trauma through dance movement therapy. Shreya Nagarajan Singh and Tenma, who run Funds for Folk, and Christopher Guruswamy for the 6 Yards of Hope online sari auction, in collaboration with Anjabarman Silks, which fundraised for disadvantaged artists during COVID. Teamwork Arts for the I Believe Art Matters fundraising gala, which raised resources for artists and artisan communities across India. T.M. Krishna for his multiple virtual performances, raising funds for artists during the pandemic.
The lockdown didn't just impact dancers in terms of cancelled engagements and loss of revenue. There was a lot of emotional unrest, mental challenges, and great deal of hardship that folk artists were experiencing. And so I threw myself into the field of asking questions, how can we help? And the ecology of the divide between urban and rural became so acute. For those of us who felt that if something locked down, we could just use our digital devices and then create online content, you needed to move 50 kilometers outside urban cities to know how hopeless the connectivity was and how impossible it was for marvelous temple and folk artists to be able to record their art and share it to the world. Our ongoing search is how can we nudge, support, cheer, coax, provoke, instigate, fund, commission, and try to raise the bar of what it means to share your live arts with the world.
The lockdown and COVID-19 really decimated artists and artisans across the length and breadth of the country. What we keep forgetting is that if an artist or an artisan doesn't sell or perform, he or she doesn't eat. We have no access to financial services. There's no access to aid or support in any way, either by the central or the local governments. And this really caused an enormous difficulty for all of these people. More and more support is required, both in terms of policy interventions as well as just sheer money to be able to help artists and artisans survive this very difficult period. What we also forget is that the ecosystem that an artist supports, I mean, for every artist who goes onto stage solo, there's been a research done which says that you need 33 people to be able to help that artist, be it front office, be it the production people, the designers, the sound and light people. And these are people we do not think of at all. At Teamwork Arts, we launched I Believe Art Matters, primarily to create an advocacy program to get people to understand why art matters and what is this world of the arts. And this arose because in the very first week after lockdown in 2020, I was asked, so why do artists need money? And can they donate to other charities? And I didn't realize they were being serious, but then later I realized that they didn't realize what they were saying, and they thought that every artist was, a Brad Pitt or a Shah Rukh Khan or a Sonu Nigam, and didn't realize there was this entire ecosystem in need for help. I Believe Art Matters very quickly became a program to raise resources for artists. We were able to help over 5,800 odd artists over these past 2 years, dancers, musicians, designers, and so many more. People who had unpaid medical bills, people who needed help with food, with rations. We were also able to provide about 27 tons of food grains to puppeteers and magicians and minority communities across the length and breadth of Delhi and, of course, in Jaipur as well. Thank you for coming together to recognize the arts. The artists need your help, and they need it now. Please do reach out and help anybody who you feel needs your support.
Namaste, ma.
Namaste, sir.
So, what did you do today?
Sir, I did more with less makeup challenge, sir, on Instagram.
What is that, ma?
Know how to sustain your makeup kit and survive for next 20 days, sir, in lockdown.
But at this time, makeup is necessary, ma.
Very essential, sir. Without my makeup, my iPad, my phone, my laptop does not open. Face recognition, sir. All my devices say it is not you. What am I supposed to do, sir?
Very sad, ma. Very sad.
Time and time again, when in crisis the world has turned towards art to light the way. In the pandemic, the arts turned to the digital world. As dance traversed the online space through new routes, more platforms became available to artists, sparking new ways of thinking. When we were all locked up at home, some of the wonderful artists and creators below brought smiles to our faces and warmth to our hearts through their comedy, camaraderie, or unique perspective on dance. With much humor and grace, Parshvanath Upadhyay provided light entertainment about dance through Instagram memes and comic videos. Madurai R. Muralidharan motivated dancers with his 50 Jati rhythmic challenge, which drew over 150 participants. The online innovations allowed us to talk, debate, laugh, console, contemplate, and most of all, connect with like-minded artists and art lovers across the world. Platforms, whether they were already well established, like Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or new spaces like Zoom and Clubhouse, enable dancers who had previously confined themselves to their studios and stages to appear on virtual stages in different lights, not only as artists, but also as people bonding together to find new modes of connecting with their audience. While we are speaking about different mediums available for creators to connect with an audience, we must include some outstanding literature that has emerged during the pandemic, such as Ahalya Satgunaratnam's Moving Bodies, Navigating Conflicts, Practicing Bharatanatyam in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Gitanjali Kulan's A Tale of Divide, Desire, and a Devdasi. Ketu H. Karthak's J. Pathar, Performance, Spatial Politics in South Africa.
Bindu. Namaste, ma.
Namaste, sir.
How was your online performance?
It went on very well, sir.
Why do you look sad?
Missed taking selfies, sir, with my fans.
Who is that, ma?
Sir, when lockdown happened, my cousin also got stuck in her house, sir.
Oh, she wants to talk to me. Namaste.
Hi.
Namaste, ma.
I love your dance. I love
Preeti Bharadwaja.
Priyanka Chopra.
So far, we have understandably heard about dancers based in India. But a lot of wonderful work was also done in the Indian classical dance sector worldwide. Here are some snapshots sent to us from across the globe, starting closest to home in the UK.
The worst of times and the best of times, cancelled performances, closed studios, loss of income, artists looking more deeply at their practice and finding gems within. We are grateful to the Arts Council of England for the COVID Emergency Fund, which gave hope and optimism to dancers and unleashed a wave of creativity. In the nominations received, we have grouped them under certain themes. First is dancers who connected with the international dance community. Akash Odedra's Road to Nine, with 60 participants and international artists looking at new ways of expressing the Navarasa. Maven Koo, master Bharatanatyam artists, giving one-to-one coaching online to international students. Sonia Sabri's company's Lok Virsa Festival, supporting artists from Afghanistan to Bangladesh and in between, reaching audiences of 3.5 million. Sujata Banerjee's bold initiative to unite the world in dance over one Earth rotation in her dance marathon. The second theme is that of philanthropy, artists who were disturbed by the images and felt they wanted to do something practical, financial. Akram Khan Dance Company gave access to exclusive performances with a donation. Usha Raghavan, who fundraised for COVID under the auspices of Palam Arts Dance Marathon. Kadam Pulse and DJ Ritu with Dancing in the Kitchen with DJ Ritu. The next theme is artists and companies who created online festivals, online workshop classes to give employment to fellow dancers. Annapurna Dance run by Shanta Rao in Halifax. Palam Arts thriving on Instagram. Upahar School run by Shalini Shivashankar in their workshop series and dance masterclasses. Nupur Arts from Leicester, their Nartan online series. And Shomik Datta, Sarod artist, his collaboration with dancers. Some organizations look to imparting knowledge and information. Deepa Ganesh's series on Tamil Sangam literature for Bharatanatyam dancers. The initiative of the Next Gen, Hiten Mystery Saloni Sharaf setting up a discussion and online forum looking at issues from funding, producing to safe practice. New work emerged over this period. The Screen Dance Festival of Academy, Divya Kasturi's work with the students of Laban, Nina Rajarani's Shrishti Squared dance film, and Nupur Arts Emerge platform.
The impact of the pandemic on teaching dance was very challenging and complex for all of us. I had started teaching ballet classes actually for Akram Khan Company online, and I quickly realized that it was a wonderful way to connect dancers from all around the world with each other, and for me to connect with them, and also that I had a responsibility in, as best I could, provide some kind of structure for dancers to have a sense of consistency in relation to their practice and therefore their identities as dancers. It has really, in a way, changed how I look at teaching. I am very much more in a space of listening and understanding the needs of dancers now. I am very, very privileged, I think, to be in a position where I am very motivated in inspiring dancers, in sharing with them as much as I know from the legacy that I come from to my understanding and my negotiation and navigation of industry today. And so as the pandemic goes in and out in different countries at different times of the year, I think what has really helped me and helped the dancers is for us to stay connected together just through the rigor of practice. And that, I think, is a gift for all of us.
Srishti Squared is a piece that was made during the first lockdown in 2020 with funding from Arts Council England. This was their emergency fund, which was given to companies like mine to sustain themselves through COVID. And in my case, to also create something new. So I had the opportunity to engage 10 artists, that's 7 dancers and 3 musicians, to come together to make this piece. So we worked entirely through remote means via Zoom, and I choreographed the material, taught it on Zoom, and it was then filmed by each of the artists in different settings according to the brief that was given to them. And they would then send recordings to me, and the whole piece was compiled with that material. It was a very confusing and frightening time for everybody, especially artists, as we rely so much on being in a physical space together to create work. But I was determined not to let this situation defeat us and to deem us, useless. So I wanted to give hope, and I had to draw strength from within myself to deal with the situation. And now, 18 months on, when I look back, I think the biggest thing that it has taught me is resilience.
We came up with the idea that we'll have an online series of performances and workshops over several months to engage students, artists, teachers, anybody who was interested in immersing in an art form, in a classical dance or music form, over a period of 5 days, and it will conclude with a performance. And this was, thankfully supported by Arts Council England as well. And we were able to have 7 different workshops spanning 7 months from November 2020 all the way to May 2021. So I think this what we did, plus online showcases of the school's students, was all completely new, a new kind of venture for us in this strange times. But luckily we were able to do it. and I think it benefited the community overall.
I'm going to talk about the dance marathon we did last year. It was a little bit of a crazy project, 26 hours of non-stop dancing. Actually, the whole idea was that dance should not stop. It traveled around the globe, starting from the UK, crossing the Atlantic, going to the North America, then South America, Canada, then to the central part of America, to the West Coast, and literally all the way around via India, Pakistan, and it came back here. 26 hours of non-stop dancing. It was a mammoth of job, and I had an excellent global team who stayed up over 26 hours to deliver the project. And also the artists, there were 55 artists from about 20 countries and 15 time zones. So it was a crazy project, but I'll do it again. Maybe not non-stop marathon, but a marathon.
Public cultural events not only allow for visibility of art itself, but also for connecting different audiences through shared experiences. Now, with lockdowns sometimes going into effect from one day to the next, the last 18 months have been very challenging here as well. And the effects were particularly felt by grassroots and community organizations not embedded in the national cultural infrastructure. So while there is somewhat of an ambiguous feeling because I'm very well aware of the many projects that did not come to fruition, I would like to mention 3 inspiring yet very different initiatives that did. In Control Alt Identity by Anima Jaguru Rause, we see the confluence of Kathak dance as a language with a decolonial and at the very same time very personal narrative. She extends this decolonial way of working not only into the performance itself, but also in the production as a whole. And in this cultural reboot, she includes the Indian diasporic community from various disciplines and backgrounds. Bharatanatyam dancer Sitra Bonu organized Panchabhutam, not only continuing the performing opportunities for students, but also collaborating with teachers from different styles, and as such, extending her platform to other dance schools. And in our neighboring country, Belgium, the Magenta Group, based in Ghent, has boldly organized a whole festival in dialogue, with dance, film, music, and a conference adding an academic lens. Partly live and partly online, the festival was the kickoff to a biannual ambition. Now, these are only a few drops in a very wide creative ocean, and I'm looking forward to seeing much more in 2022.
In Singapore, the Indian dance scene is mostly institutionalized, and it is they who drive the creative processes here. They have not only continued to put up the normal traditional themes, but also came up with works addressing the present dilemma in Singapore. And this was done by 2 of the oldest institutions here, the Singapore Fine Arts Society and Bhaskar's Arts Academy. SIFAS actually also had a series of dances that was put up in Instagram on a continuous basis, in keeping with the times. And Bhaskar's Arts Academy managed to stage the second of a trilogy called Marabu quite successfully. Apsara Arts continued to present some of their works very well. Despite glitches and delays that came their way, they rose to the occasion. So I started a mentorship program 2 years ago, where we choose promising young dancers and put them through a process, nudging them into producing, creating their own works. Working on music for a dance drama in Kuchipudi posed its own challenges, with Rajkumar Bharti sir, the composer, sitting in Chennai and choreographer sitting in Singapore. We finally overcame those challenges and many lessons learned. In Malaysia, Ramle Ibrahim and the Sutra dancers had their shows cancelled twice. And the second time round, just 4 days before showtime. You can imagine what it did to the morale of everybody concerned. But at the third round, they delivered. And how? Shankar Kandasamy, a soloist and a teacher in Malaysia, found this a great period for him to write lyrics and compose music. He did a series of kautuams, which he later choreographed and presented on social media. Ajit Bhaskar Das says he found this as an opportunity to try and understand the mechanics of how the visual media works, besides performances that were commissioned. Besides the increase in accessibility that practitioners and audiences experience, I think, or it is my belief, that the silver lining lies in the way we have tried to convert adversity into opportunity.
Indian classical dance in Australia happens in the suburbs through teaching and training, just like anywhere else. However, unlike the UK or the US, Indian classical dance has not reached the same mainstream level as we'd like to hope for. During the pandemic, just like elsewhere, Australia has also tried to keep its Indian classical dance in practice. And one of the first events that springs to mind is the Sangam Dance Festival, which was hosted in Melbourne. This was a pan-Australia festival for the South Asian diaspora. And over 100 artists participated in this festival, which was held over 4 weekends. The performances included dance, music, theatre, spoken word, including Bollywood. And it was beautifully curated and created by dancer, academic and researcher Dr. Priya Srinivasan, along with musician Hari Sivanesan and vocalist Uttara Vijay. Even though the performance was held over 4 weekends, the work for it happened over so many months prior to it. There was mentoring with amazing artists like Veena Basvarajaya, based in India. Priyadarshini Govindji was part of it. And what it did was bring together these artists to create really thinking, divergent works. Fortunately, I was also part of this incredible festival and managed to create some work that I have always been proud of. The other company that springs to mind from an institutional level is Argal Dance Company, based out of Sydney. This is a group of dancers who have their foundation in Bharatanatyam and have created amazing dance films and works over the past couple of years. Ray of Light, Blueprint, Spectrum are some of the works, and these are available on online platforms and YouTube. And they've also created or hosted Argal Labs, which was an open session that anybody could join, led by Chidambaram Suresh. And the choreographer or the artistic director of Argal Dance Company is Vishnu Arunachalam, who has really created interesting pieces of work along with his teachers and other dancers. And of course, Boxed. That created a global impact, and Australia was not spared, for which I'm very grateful. And one last thing I'd like to mention is the Erasing Borders Dance Festival, hosted by the Indo-American Arts Council based in New York. Again, I was very privileged to be commissioned and selected to perform a work, and I think I've been the only Australian artist in the recent past to have been able to create a work in Mohiniyattam for this festival. So there are dance creations and creatives happening in Australia. And my hope is that we'd be able to pursue this journey with rigor and be able to reach the same kind of artistic aspirations and level as our peers have in UK and the US.
First of all, a great tribute to Meera Kaushik for what she has done over decades to bring attention to Indian dance in the UK. And similarly, right here in New York City, Rajika Puri, a lifetime of contribution to Indian classical dance. Ratna Kumar in Houston, Nandini Mandal in Pittsburgh, and Aditi Mangaldas in New Delhi, with the competition that she sponsored for her dancers to create, to encourage them to find new wellsprings of creativity during COVID. I think it's so important to see the senior established artist shining a light and giving a platform for the younger generation. I'm touched also that so many people participated in the Battery Dance Festivals in 2020, which was completely online, and 2021, which was hybrid. We managed to reach 35,000 people through the live performance and the online streaming. So there's definitely a silver lining during the COVID. It's so interesting to see a form like Teyam or Kudiyatam that are not well known here and could be shared with the audience through Pradesh Tirutiya in Kerala and Kapila Vinu, also in Kerala. These people can't travel with their full entourage, but through the COVID situation and everybody going online, we were able to see their beautiful artistry and to share it with our big audience here. I'm also touched to see younger generation artists like Durgesh Gangani, Sushant Gaurav, Unath Hassan Ratnaraju, and so many others who are continuing their teaching, continuing to perform in whatever way they can during these very, very difficult times. Here in New York, I was thrilled that Janaki Patrick was chosen to give the keynote address for the Fulbright Association and to speak and share her experience of studying with Birju Maharaj in Delhi as a Fulbrighter all those years ago. So many people to shine a light on. Akasho Dedra, always watching his online contributions. And I don't know where to finish this because there's so many others that I couldn't have the time to mention. But thank you, Meera, and thank you, Manch UK, because you're performing a great service. And we do our little bit here in New York and hope to aspire to greatness in the future.
When the pandemic struck, it was surreal. For some time, it was just a shock I experienced when I really couldn't, almost a benumbing kind of shock. But I think what came through, which really lasted through the many months, was I could see myself as part of humanity. I could see myself as part of just belonging to this planet, belonging to the world. There wasn't the sense of geography, identity. I think those kinds of things seemed to slip away. And it certainly made me want to reach out. It certainly made me want to connect with people. And I think that was also part of the reason I did some of the online programs when I was speaking about my dance, when I wanted to share what I felt, what I experienced. And I just wanted to reach out to people. I think that became a very important part of living, the need to reach out. And I think that's what this pandemic has really shown me, the isolation, and that we as people, we really can't live with isolation and we need relationships. That was the important lasting imprint in my mind.
And one of the first things that had struck me was that all of us were stopped from going out. And then the whole idea came that and people have started writing about it, that instead of going out, then people were forced to go inside. And when they went within themselves, I observed two trends that developed one after the other, especially among people who were mostly performers, and that was very interesting and touching. The first one was to delve deeper into themselves and try and do better what they were already doing, or delve inside and ask slightly different questions and feel a little more courageous in doing things that they wouldn't otherwise have thought to do. The other trend was that even performers were putting out platforms, and the people who were already putting out platforms, like Manch was a brand new platform created at that point in time for COVID. And I saw the people were getting so innovative in the way they were approaching how that platform would serve a particular function. And there were a lot of other events that gradually stand out, and dance usually is the center of activity. So you have musicians who make music for dance, then you have costumers who make costumes for dance, and so on and so forth, people who write for dance and so on. Finally, I mean, it sort of table turned, and I found dancers were on the spoke, and society came into the center and became the core. So our humanity came to the core. And I think what you saw this evening would represent all those activities, all those different approaches that sort of went through phases as people discovered more about themselves, as they got more in tune with themselves and with others. And for me, it's humanity that's come out, and dance as humanity actually proved itself to be that, not just in words, but actually, as we say, on the stage, on the ground, with music, with costume, without costume, every which way. And I think we all became more human, and the human beingness of dance became really, really touching and palpable to me. And that is a mark of our COVID times, I think.
If dancers, teachers, students, organizers, patrons, and audience members can form spaces of imaginative excellence in a global pandemic, we are excited for the future as the world hopefully heals. We are looking forward to taking some of the new ways of thinking, discussing, engaging, giving, and performing into many eras of dance, while reclaiming some models of engagement that can return if all improves. We dearly miss the in-person warmth that traditionally existed in the dance sector before coronavirus hit. But we are appreciative of the way in which people have made the most of what is available, and in doing so, opened new doors. Thank you all for joining us in commemorating the triumphs of our contemporaries and friends this evening.
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us in this celebratory and commemorative event today. We hope that you have had a stimulating evening reminiscing the achievements of the dance sector over the last 2 years. Though much has been disrupted by COVID, every obstacle is a learning curve, providing opportunities to grow as artists.